I thought we were going to Utopia.
What makes you say this isn't Utopia?
In the past few months, we've heard a few rumours here and there of a new Travis Scott album. Now, while this is obviously exciting, I can't help but think people are getting a little too ahead of themselves. It's only been a year and a half since Travis's last album, which was Utopia. Released at the end of 2023, Utopia was one of the most interesting albums I've ever experienced. First off, the whole Utopia era brought about one of the greatest album rollouts in my personal opinion. Travis went all out to make Utopia feel like a once-in-a-lifetime event. And in my opinion, he did exactly that. Utopia didn't just feel like an album, it felt like a moment in your life. When it comes to hype, I don't think I've ever seen something on the level that we saw with Utopia. It's a skill that Travis really has. He makes you excited for his projects. Watching videos of the Circus Maximus tour makes me so jealous that I didn't go to it myself. And you may call this glazing, but I love Utopia as an album and as an era in Travis's career. And this love that I'm showing for the album was shared by most audiences when the album first released. Many people were calling it the album of 2023. Straight away, it got labeled as Travis's best album of his entire discography. And when you look at the albums that Travis has released, this was such a high compliment. But as time has gone on, people's opinions of the album has weakened significantly. People now place Utopia second or third in Travis's discography, behind Rodeo and Astroworld. And don't get me wrong, those albums are great. They have some huge bangers on there. Both Astroworld and Rodeo feature some of the greatest trap and rap songs that we've had in the past decade. But in my opinion, Utopia is levels above them. Not only does it have the bangers that Rodeo and Astroworld has, but it also has a mature message and meaning for a much more mature Travis. Utopia features Travis trying to show his audience that they can create their own Utopia. While Utopia is often described as a singular place, Travis creates an image of Utopia that is special and unique to each individual. Utopia as a concept was incredible, and I don't think I've seen something like that from an album before. Utopia was already such a significant thing in culture and pop culture, and Travis applied it to this album perfectly. To properly understand the album, we first must ask the question, what is Utopia? Well, the term originally comes from the 1516 book by Thomas More. He used the term to describe an imaginary island with a perfect social and economic system. The word Utopia is similar to the word Utopia, which means a good place. And that should give you an idea of the place that Utopia was pictured as. In Thomas More's book, Utopia is a perfect place with religious freedom, no class structure, and a lack of crime. And if I stop the description there, you'd probably also believe that Utopia is perfect. You're probably thinking that Utopia is what we should all strive for in real life society. However, Thomas More's idea of Utopia was not all perfect. For a start, there was large amounts of slavery, which we can all agree is far from perfect. All housing is also shared, which depending on who you ask, could be a good or a bad thing. While this is a huge financial burden off the shoulders of a lot of people, it also means there's no privacy. So with those details, I think it's safe to assume that Utopia isn't as perfect as you once thought. The literal definition of the word Utopia also translates to no place. This then allows us to ask the question whether a utopian society can ever exist. If Utopia is not a place, why are we striving to create it? There will always be different opinions on each aspect of society. This could be religion, politics, or economics. Therefore, one place that is perfect to you may be awful to someone else. A key example is what I just mentioned of all housing being shared. If you're struggling financially or are looking to get a property, that could be perfect for you. But if you value your privacy, then this could be a nightmare for you. However, Travis does a very interesting thing with the concept of Utopia. Instead of picturing Utopia as a physical place, he instead disconnects it from this meaning and gives it another one. This new meaning given to Utopia is a perfect place for just one person, not for an entire society. It's more of a spiritual utopia rather than a physical one. Outside opinions don't matter. All that matters is what's important to the individual. This version of utopia isn't a physical place. It can be a mindset or a time period in someone's life. A key example that Travis uses on the album can be seen at the very end of the song Sirens, which a lot of you may have missed.
I thought we were going to Utopia.
What makes you say this isn't Utopia?
I mean, I don't know. Isn't it supposed to be some perfect destination? This is just your hotel room.
There you can hear Drake speaking to a woman in his hotel room. She appears to be annoyed that she hasn't been taken to a perfect place that she may have been promised. But Drake believes that he has actually taken her to this perfect place in his hotel room. Now this interaction perfectly shows what I was talking about, how what one person believes to be utopia, someone else might not think that. What I also found interesting in the interaction is that the celebrity, which is Drake, prefers these simpler things. Drake has already seen and done incredible things, so now he just may want to relax and appreciate these simpler things. However, on the other hand, the normal person who we don't know, which is the woman, she wants something perfect. It's a clear case of people wanting what they just can't have. This could also link to the true meaning of the word utopia, which means no place. If utopia is what we can't have, then utopia can never be achieved. The only way to achieve utopia is to love what you have and appreciate what you can have. This could also be seen in this image that Travis posted for his performance in Egypt at the pyramids. I also think it's important to take a note of Drake's tone in this interaction. He seems so laid back and relaxed despite the fact that the woman is clearly annoyed with him. This shows how unbothered he is by the outside opinions. He knows his utopia is unique to him and it doesn't matter what others think of it. This interaction could also have some sexual connotations. Drake promised to show her a perfect place, then took her to his hotel room to sleep with her potentially. This could be a brief show of his ego. He believes that what would be perfect for her is to sleep with him. So as you can see, this one small interaction at the very end of a song has a lot of links to the theme of finding your personal utopia. And that's something that Travis carries on throughout the whole album. The obvious best place to start when looking at the entire album is with the first song, Hyena. The intro to the song samples the song Proclamation by Gentle Giants. The sample states, "The situation we are in at this time, neither a good one, nor it is so unblessed. It can change, it can stay the same." Now in the song Proclamation by Gentle Giants, these lines are from the perspective of a king. He is addressing his people. However, Travis flips it to give it a new meaning to the theme of utopia. Instead of a king addressing his kingdom, it is Travis addressing his utopia. Is it perfect? No. But is it a bad place? Also no. It's also not a set mindset. It can change, it can develop. The specific lines that I want to focus on is this one, "Neither a good one, nor is it so unblessed." This changes the meaning of utopia from a perfectly good place to a mixed place. Everyone's personal utopia could be seen as good or bad depending on who you ask. And that's the beauty of this new utopia, or Newtopia. It allows for a freedom of judgment and a freedom of opinion that the original utopia didn't allow for. Also, the word unblessed could have religious connotations, which you're going to see as the album goes on. As Hyena goes on, we get another important line when Travis says, "We stayed down for life, it's like a jingle to do them all." The first part of this line to me shows Travis's commitment to his craft. This gives us a first glimpse into what is important to Travis and what is part of his utopia. He prefers hard work and commitment over laziness. Travis is essentially feeding us small parts of his utopia bit by bit as the album goes on. And he carries this on onto the next song, which is Thank God. Now, as the title suggests, this song is heavily religious. The song features many biblical references as well as praising God directly. Now, one thing I love is that Travis doesn't make you believe his version of utopia is the only right one. He too allows for that freedom of judgment and freedom of opinion that I was previously talking about. And I believe one way he does this is by making these songs genuinely enjoyable and lyrically smart. Despite utopia being a very different concept for Travis and his career, it still keeps his signature style. Even if you're not religious, I believe you could still enjoy Thank God a lot. Now, one comparison I want to make here is between Thank God and Jesus is King by Kanye. Now, I know Kanye isn't exactly the nicest person at the minute, but Jesus is King was released at a very different time to now. Now, I myself am religious and did really enjoy Jesus is King as an album. However, I understand that a lot of non-religious people thought that this was one of Kanye's weakest albums. Now, this could be for a few reasons. Perhaps they didn't connect with it, perhaps they found it to be a bit preachy, or perhaps they they just didn't like the songs. Either way, Kanye did not execute in making a well-liked religious piece of music. In contrast, Travis made Thank God a very enjoyable listen for everyone. This links back to what Travis said in Hyena about being committed and loyal to his work. He's not going to change who he is just because he's looking at a different concept. This continues on to the next song, which is Modern Jam. Now, side note, this is my favourite song on the entire album, but mainly because I love Tizo Touchdown. This guy is so underrated. Please go check him out. But aside from that, the meaning of Modern Jam hasn't actually been confirmed by anyone yet. But after looking at the lyrics, I think Travis is giving us some more things that are important to him. The main two being music and love. Lyrics such as, I got them levitating way off their knees. The way I make it jump, I make it hard to breathe. To me shows Travis's love for performing. The Circus Maximus tour, to me, established Travis as one of the best modern day rap performers. You can say what you like about his music, but when it comes to a show, Travis pulls out all the stops. And I think this is because he genuinely does enjoy performing. When watching videos of Travis performing, you can tell that he loves doing it. His Utopia would not be complete if music and performing wasn't a part of it. The next lyric I want to look at is when Travis says, my dick's so hard poking like the Eiffel. I just need the world, I ain't hard to please. Here we can see that Travis also needs to be loved in his Utopia. He ironically says all he needs is the world. He's a very high maintenance person, but he's not ashamed of that. This theme of love continues into the next song, which is My Eyes. Travis says the lyrics, all that green and yellow that drip from your eyes is telling. Now this lyric refers to his past relationship with Kylie Jenner. Now this could show how Travis wants to be loved. However, the fact he is specifically speaking about his ex perhaps shows that his Utopia specifically involves her. At this point in time, he feels like he can't live without her. This is another case of wanting what you just can't have, like we saw with the Drake interaction on Sirens. The natural human nature is to want what we can't have. So most people will never achieve true happiness. And when you look at Utopia, this is perhaps the true meaning behind it. Perhaps Thomas More and even Travis are trying to show us that we just can't appreciate what we currently have because we're always striving for something that is just unachievable. Also in My Eyes comes this line, which is probably a reference to the Astroworld disaster. Now I think this line is important because Travis is taking accountability for what happened in a way. Perhaps part of his Utopia is also humility and owning up to your mistakes. After My Eyes, we come to the song God's Country. The sample used in the song creates a melancholy and gloomy feeling. Now I believe the placement of God's Country is a bit confusing. I actually believe that this song should come first in the album. The reason I believe that is because the song features Travis coming to a revelation that his life and behavior has been misguided. Therefore, it would make more sense to me if this revelation came earlier and then we saw Travis trying to achieve his Utopia. Alternatively, God's Country could create a new perspective on the first few songs. Instead of the first few songs talking about aspect of his modern Utopia, perhaps they were aspects of his old life and his old Utopia that he wanted to cut out. Things like partying and pining over his ex is behavior he wants to cut out. However, the one thing that makes me question this is because of Thank God. If the first few songs were about behavior he wants to cut out, why would he feature such a religious song? Especially when he continues to speak about God and religion as the album goes on. Anyway, God's Country starts with the lyrics, waking up, I see the light, I've been drunk and it's alright. This is the revelation that I was previously talking about. The light could refer to a religious awakening that Travis has had. He's decided to connect with his religion and stop sinning. The second part of the lyrics probably refers to his previous behavior. Being drunk used to be the status quo for Travis. We then get the lyrics, it's demon time, I got it on me, might earn a teardrop overnight. Demon time could again refer to Travis's sinful behavior. He felt possessed by the devil almost and was given into sin and temptations. Saying that he might earn a teardrop may refer to the teardrop tattoo murderers get. Travis was tempted by the devil so much he almost turned to murder, whether this be of someone else or actually killing himself. Alternatively, it could refer to a physical tear. Travis was committing behavior even he was saddened by, but couldn't stop. We then hear the lines, it's hot as hell, but where's the ice? You in God's country, not Montgomery. Travis actually contradicts himself here. First, he says it's hot as hell, another biblical reference. However, he then says he's in God's country, aka heaven. So is he currently in hell or heaven? This could potentially refer to the position and mindset he was in. He wasn't all the way in the good category, but he wasn't all the way in the bad category. He was in a weird limbo phase of not knowing what to do and how to behave. He could also be contradicting himself because he's not trying to paint the picture of a perfect place, like I've already said. His utopia is both heaven and hell depending on your perspective. Also, God's country could refer to his utopia here, which means he's referring to himself as God. This shows an egotistical and unreligious side to Travis. Travis has had this revelation, yet he still has flaws. He still has an ego, and he's still sinning. He's showing us that he's not going to be perfect instantly. Instead, he needs time to develop. In his utopia, his ego may creep up and he will make mistakes. Now, to me, the melancholy and gloomy sound to God's country that I mentioned earlier makes you picture a disconnected and imperfect place. I don't think the tone of the song was an accident, and I believe it was to give the listener a mental image of utopia. Now, I've already spoken about the important parts of Siren, so I'm going to skip forward to Meltdown. Now, I'm mainly going to be focusing on Travis's verse and not really speaking about Drake's feature. The song's tempo builds as it goes on, which to me connotes how Travis is growing and developing as his life goes on. Throughout the song, Travis compares himself to many people, such as DaBaby, Tom Brady, and Tony Montana. Travis almost has a godlike complex on Meltdown. Now, this could be for two reasons. The first one could be because he is still struggling with his ego and working on himself and his religion. However, the other reason could be because Travis is going against the devil. Satan and God are the biggest of enemies, and likewise, Satan is Travis's biggest enemy. So in that sense, Travis is like God. However, that could cause Travis's ego to start to creep in if he begins to see himself as God. It's a very fine line and he's struggling to stay on it. I'm going to skip over Fiend because I think that song was just put in the album specifically for performing. One thing I will say is the word Fiend probably refers to Travis's drug addiction. What you're probably noticing is that we've entered a very different part of the album. At first we heard things that Travis loved in his life and was positive for him, such as partying and performing. However, now we're seeing the negatives of his life, such as his ego, drug use, and pining for his ex. However, we then get another mood shift when we move on to the song Del Resto. The song touches on themes such as freedom, reflection, and purpose in life. Travis first says the lines, "Riding through the thunder, trying to see the summer." This line for me shows us the journey we've been on in the album thus far. The past few songs have been the thunder, songs which touch on the negative and gloomy topics of his life. However, now Travis is going to try and see the light and look at the positives. He's going to look for the good things. He's going to appreciate what he has. He's going to try and find his utopia. It won't be a perfect utopia, but in a way, an imperfect utopia is perfect. We then get the lines, "Recognize Del Resto, recognize the let go." Now, I think this refers to Travis's ex Kylie Jenner again. The couple used to live on a street called Del Resto Drive. Therefore, Travis may drive past the house and remember the memories he had with her. But there's been a change since the song My Eyes. He's not fighting it, he's letting go. He recognizes that this is what is best for him. This is what I was talking about when I said Utopia features a more mature Travis. While Rodeo and Astroworld are great, they don't feature this level of growth. It's also noteworthy to mention that the words Del Resto in Italian means after all. This is a different Travis after all the previous songs. After going through all his issues, he's a more mature person. I also think it's important to talk about Beyonce's lines where she says, "We can't seem to break through out the logical, to see it in the day you gotta free your soul." She's saying here that most people rely on logical and scientific thinking in life, and this is a main reason why a lot of people aren't religious. They simply believe it isn't reasonable or logical. However, Beyonce says that the only way to achieve true freedom in life is to break free from this mindset and allow yourself to believe. I'm going to quickly jump over I Know because most of the topics of the song I already spoken about, pining for his ex and drug use. Instead, I'm going to jump to Utopia twins. Travis, 21 Savage, and Rob 49 appear to be feeding into a false utopia. The specific line, line I want to focus on is when Travis says, "Twin bitches hopping off a jet ski." Travis appears to believe that allowing these women to sleep with him will bring them closer to finding Utopia. However, while you could see this as Travis regressing back to his old mindset, I believe it's the opposite. I believe Travis is actually correct, but not for the reason you might think. If these women sleep with Travis, they will actually get closer to their utopia. But it will be because they will realize how unfulfilling this actually is. This will help them make the correct decisions in the future and steer clear of this behavior again. Utopia Twins is essentially a song of advice. It shows the listener what behavior to avoid. However, it also doesn't tell the listener to not do it at all. Travis has probably realized that the best way to mature as a person is to learn through your own mistakes. If you don't make these mistakes, you're never going to grow as a person. We then get the song Circus and Maximus. The song gives us some much needed humanity for Travis. He starts with the lyrics, "A walking attraction, a walking distraction." This is what many fans see Travis as, a spectacle or a distraction from their own issues. Travis has probably fed into this image with his previous albums. Rodeo and Astroworld, like I said, don't have much personality. And while these albums are great, it doesn't portray Travis as a deep and complex individual. The title of Circus Maximus also refers to a Roman arena where gladiators performed. They were also not seen as human and were simply sources of entertainment. Travis is comparing himself to these Roman gladiators. While they physically ruin their lives by potentially dying in them, Travis is emotionally ruining his life because he can't act human. We then get a very important line directly afterwards when Travis says, "I'm naturally black." Now, Circus Maximus has rightfully drawn many comparisons to Black Skinhead by Kanye West. The production, lyrics, and themes are all very similar. Both artists boast their lifestyle. However, this behavior can fuel racist stereotypes towards them. Now, this line gives another layer of depth to Travis. We can see he is someone who is concerned and interested in the racism in society. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Travis has ever spoken about this before. I do also want to speak about the lines from The Weeknd when he says, "But do you care if I was alive? Or do you want to be famous?" This continues the theme of being dehumanized as a celebrity, but this time with love. Many people don't see celebrities, or more specifically rappers, as people who want genuine connections. If a rapper isn't in a long-term relationship with children, we automatically assume that they are sleeping around. Instead, these are just people who are probably looking for love. The last line I want to speak about on Circus Maximus is when Travis says, "In this world, look around, yo. It's just mano y mano." Now, mano y mano means hand on hand or face-to-face encounters. This is probably another aspect of Travis's utopia. Instead of social media and the internet, Travis prefers face-to-face and direct interactions with people. They allow for a more real and emotional connection. We then move on to the much slower song, Parasail. Now, the main part I want to focus on is the speech by Dave Chappelle we hear throughout the song. He gives a motivational speech about never giving up, saying things like, "I stand tall, I fall, I get up, I fall, I get up." We've now gone back to the earlier aspect of Travis's utopia. He's back to speaking about staying motivated to his art and his job. Despite going through some tough spots in previous songs, he still stands strong and tall. Travis has had a lot happen to him, whether this be his breakup with Kylie Jenner or the Astroworld tragedy. He is still here though. He hasn't given up making music because of all this. Nothing seems to stop him. We then move on to Schizo with Young Thug, a very, very good song. Now, the title obviously refers to schizophrenia, and this can be heard throughout the song in a way. The constant stuttering and beat switches make it seem like Travis is paranoid and worried and doesn't know what to say. I think placing this song after the more positive Parasail was intentional. I think it portrays how Travis's life is ever changing and is very, very fast paced. One moment he can be at the top of the world, feeling motivated and ready to take on the world. The next, he's worried and struggling. This could be a side effect of a drug problem perhaps as well. Now, this can obviously be seen as a negative thing, but also a positive. This way of life could be seen as keeping him on his toes and keeping his life varied. Travis's life is not monotonous. He's always doing something. We can see this as we move on to the next song, Lost Forever. The song features Travis talking about being lost in his utopia. Now, in my opinion, we've had another huge mood shift. Travis has gone from being down and worried and scared to so high and happy he doesn't know what to do. Parasail, Schizo, and Lost Forever show 3 completely different emotions at either side of a huge spectrum. Parasail is a very positive and upbeat Travis. Schizo is a very down and worried Travis. However, Lost Forever is sort of both of these. While he is very, very happy, it's now making him sad. It's sort of a moment where Travis is thinking to himself, now what? Maybe he believes he's achieved his utopia and doesn't know what to do with his life anymore. Now, the constant mood changes could refer to Travis's life being very fast-paced, as I've already said. However, they could also be another aspect of his utopia. It isn't perfect. There's massive lows and astronomical highs. We then move on to the final act of the album, if you want to call it that, the most positive section, and this starts with the song Love with Kid Cudi. Both artists speak on the love they receive from their fans. Travis is once again speaking of his life as a celebrity and the aspects of it, but this time it's way more positive. While Circus Maximus portrayed the life as a celebrity as very lonely, Love does the complete opposite. The song Love makes him feel surrounded by so many people who adore him. There's been real growth between Circus Maximus and Love. A much more mature and appreciative Travis is talking to us now. Travis loves the love he gets. He loves the passion he feels at these shows. He finally realizes that every aspect of his life, even if he once hated it, is important for him. I'm going to quickly gloss over K-pop as it isn't the deepest or best song on the album. However, one thing I will say is that this song speaks on drugs in a positive way. If you don't know, the title of K-pop, I think, means ketamine pop. Now, you could say that this song is glorifying drug use and bad behavior. However, I think Travis is so positive because he has it in moderation. While he did at one point have a very heavy drug problem, now he only uses it on special or rare occasions. Also, he no longer hates himself for using it. He's not doing it out of necessity or to feel good. He's just doing it because he loves it. After K-pop comes Telekinesis, and I quickly want to say fair play to Travis. He made a religious song and got Future on it and made it sound incredible. Fair play. But like I said, the song is religious, with Travis saying lyrics such as, I can see the future, it's looking like we leveled through the sky, I can't wait to live in glory, in eternal lasting life. Whilst Travis was previously struggling to stay committed to his religion and giving into temptation, he no longer is. He's fully devoted and can't wait to be in heaven after death. Alternatively, this eternal lasting life could be his utopia. If he's happy, he's going to make memories that last an eternity. The maturer version of Travis has found peace and he's no longer conflicted. The album finishes with the incredible Till Further Notice. The song essentially tells the audience to stay tuned for more of Travis. Again, we're seeing how committed Travis is to music. Despite being on an album, he's still telling us to wait for new albums. It also asks the audience where they'll go from here, with James Blake repeating the line, "Where will you go now?" This line is essentially a call to action for the audience. Travis knows Utopia is his deepest work yet. Therefore, he doesn't want the messages to be lost on the audience. Therefore, he reaches out to them directly and wants them to question themselves. He wants them to go out and create their utopia, so he's asking them to do it. This, in my opinion, is one of the best endings to an album. It stops a lot of listeners from leaving this album with no reflection. I love when songs encourage a listener to think and talk about it, and that is what Till Further Notice does. It's questioning what the listener will do. What will the listener take away from this? It also doesn't give you an answer to the question. It lets you have your own meaning from the album. It rounds off an incredible album and an incredible concept. Now we've looked at the entire album of Utopia, let's now ask the question of why I think Utopia is Travis's best piece of work. Well, for me, the main reason is because of the complex and detailed stories that Travis tells us on this album. He speaks on many issues which affect him, such as his ego, drug use, and racism, many of which he's never spoken about before. All of these stories help the listener see what the perfect world is for Travis. It helps us understand him more as a person rather than a performer. And the best part is that this perfect world is far from that. It's flawed and has many issues, whilst also having great qualities just like Travis himself. This in turn allows for the audience to question themselves and what's important to them. If you go back to Rodeo and Astroworld, I don't think you'd be saying that a Travis Scott album would make you reflect on the important things in your life, but Utopia does just that. Utopia was a boundary-pushing album for Travis and was rightfully well received when it first released. I find it so disappointing that people are calling it overrated now, because in my opinion, Utopia is levels above Travis's previous work. And that's no offense to them, they are great in their own way, but none of them have the story or depth that Utopia has. Utopia was my album of the year for 2023, and the fact that it didn't win that Grammy will always annoy me. I hope the public opinion of Utopia comes back around to what it once was, because the album deserves all the praise it can get.